Well, fine, good afternoon, everyone. This is Patricia, and I am traveling for history. I'm in Burlington, Vermont today on South Willard Street. In fact, this house I'm going to talk about in just a moment is number 158 South Willard Street. It's on the corner of Main and South Willard. Main Street runs east and west. East is uphill. If you were to head west, eventually you would meander your way down to Lake Champlain. South Willard Street runs north and south. To my left is north. If you were to head all the way down to the end, you'd run into Riverside Avenue. If you were to turn right into Riverside Avenue, you could head to Winooski, Vermont. Now, I have plenty of videos on Winooski, Vermont. In fact, I have a playlist of them. I have so many. If you were to head south, which is to my right, on South Willard Street, you would eventually head to Shelburne Street, which is what it's called here in Burlington. It turns into Shelburne Road once you hit South Burlington. And Shelburne Road is also known as Route 7. So Willard Street, South Willard Street is a very busy street. There is no good time of day or night to film this, just so you know. I know when I filmed the Maltex building on Pine Street that I did have one person tell me that it was really hard to hear because the traffic was so great. I filmed that on a Sunday night at sunset, which was summertime, and that was about 9 p.m. So there is no good time for Pine Street either. And it's not quite as busy as South Willard Street. So I do apologize for any road noise you will hear. So the building we're standing in front of, or I'm standing in front of, is currently a Champlain College building. It may be a dormitory, I'm not sure, but it's a Champlain College building anyway. Before that, it was a University of Vermont fraternity, Phi Gamma Delta if you prefer. And let me see, that if you're local, you probably remember it as Fiji, a play on Phi and Gamma. If you remember Fiji, please say something in the comments below. I remember when it was Fiji. But you know, the thing is, I care about the first two owners, and this video is about the first owner, the person for whom it was built. So before I tell you who that was, let me read you the architectural history of the place. I found this online on the saharchipedia.org website. I'll include the description I'm going to read and the link in the description below so you can check out what I'm reading if you wish. So this is known as the Wells-Jackson House. Quote, in the 1870s, Civil War General William Wells moved his family patent medicine business, Wells Richardson and Company, from Waterbury to Burlington. And by 1875, he had hired Saratoga, New York architect Croff to design his house. That year, Croff published the house as the frontispiece of his progressive American architecture, which was 1875. Describing it as, quote, an elegant villa executed on a lofty eminence in the city of Burlington, Vermont, overlooking the Bay of Burlington and the Adirondack Mountains, unquote. The eminence Croft mentioned was a parcel on a still sparsely developed Willard Street acquired from the Lawrence Barnes estate. The villa is a symmetrical, bracketed brick block with an advancing central tower and multi-story polygonal bay windows. Croft wrapped the first floor with an Italianate veranda, and that's to the right here. It's a bit hard to see, but it's over this side here. And capped the house with slate, mansard roofs, and iron crustings. And we can see the mansard roof is right there. And I don't see iron crustings any longer on the top. But they would have been along here and probably along the top of the mansard roofs on both sides. As executed by A.B. Fisher, who became one of the city's most important builder architects, the house is slightly less busy and assertive, though far more animated than Burlington's earlier Italianate houses, unquote. The authors of this were Glenn M. Andrus and Curtis B. Johnson. So, I have at least 2 other videos on General William Wells, and I'll put links to them in the description below. But this is a picture of him, by the way. That is William Wells, right there. William W. Wells, Jr., born December 14, 1837, died April 29, 1892. That would make him 54 when he died. Was a businessman, politician, and general in the Union Army during the American Civil War, who received a Medal of Honor for gallantry at the Battle of Gettysburg. He was born in Waterbury, Vermont, the third of 10 children, 9 of whom were boys, of William and Eliza Wells. He began his education in the common schools of his native town and mastered the higher branches in Barry Academy and Kimball Union Academy in Meriden, New Hampshire. While in Barry at the age of 17, he used an odometer in surveying for a county map of Caledonia County, a task which occupied him for 2 months. From the age of 19 until the spring of 1861, he was his father's assistant in his extensive business. At the outbreak of the Civil War, William Wells and 3 of his brothers joined the Union Army. Wells enlisted as a private soldier on September 9, 1861, and assisted in raising Company C of the 1st Vermont Cavalry. He was sworn into federal service October 3, 1861, and was soon promoted first lieutenant and then captain in November of that year. He was in the thickest of the fight at Orange Courthouse, Virginia, August 2, 1862, and was promoted to major on October 30, 1862. Wells commanded the 2nd Battalion, 1st Vermont Cavalry, in the repulse of Stuart's cavalry at the Battle of Hanover during the Gettysburg Campaign. In the famous and desperate cavalry charge on Big Round Top on the 3rd day of Gettysburg, July 3, 1863, he commanded the leading battalion, rode by the side of General Farnsworth, the brigade commander, and almost by a miracle came out unharmed, while his commander fell in the midst of the enemy's infantry. A few days later, in the savage cavalry melee at the Battle of Boonesboro in Maryland, Wells was wounded by a saber cut. At Culpeper Courthouse, Virginia, September 13, 1863, he charged the enemy's artillery with his regiment and captured a gun and was again wounded by a shell. Congress later awarded Wells a Medal of Honor, quote, for distinguished gallantry at the Battle of Gettysburg, July 3, 1863, unquote. After the return of the regiment from the Kilpatrick raid in March 1864, Major Wells was detached and placed in command of the 7th Michigan Cavalry, which had lost its commander for a month. He commanded a battalion of Sheridan's cavalry at the Battle of Yellow Tavern, in which Jeb Stuart was killed, or J.E.B. Stuart. Wells was promoted to colonel on June 4, 1864. From September 1864 to April 1865, he was several times in command of the 3rd Cavalry Division. In the Battle of Tom's Brook, Virginia, October 9, 1864, a cavalry action, Wells commanded a brigade of Custer's division, and at Cedar Creek, his brigade took a foremost part in turning the rout of the morning into a decisive victory at nightfall, capturing 45 of the 48 pieces of artillery taken from Jubal Early's fleeing army. Wells was appointed Brevet Brigadier General of Volunteers on February 22, 1865. On the personal recommendations of Generals Sheridan and Custer, Wells was commissioned Brigadier General May 16, 1865, and he was appointed Brevet Major General of Volunteers March 30, 1865, quote, for gallant and meritorious service, unquote, having received more promotions than any other Vermont officer during the war, from private to general in less than 3.5 years. Wells served under Generals Kilpatrick, Sheridan, and Custer, and was with Kilpatrick in his famous raid on Richmond, and with James H. Wilson in his daring foray to the south of that city. At Appomattox Courthouse on the morning of the surrender of the Army of Northern Virginia, Wells's brigade had started on its last charge and was stopped by General Custer in person. He distinguished himself repeatedly at action. Sheridan remarked, quote, he is my ideal of a cavalry officer. Following Appomattox, the departure of Sheridan and Custer for Texas left Wells as the ranking officer and last commander of the Cavalry Corps of the Army of the Potomac. At the Grand Review in Washington, D.C. on May 22, 1865, he commanded the 2nd Brigade of Custer's Division of the Cavalry Corps, which led the advance. Wells participated in 70, that's a 7-0, cavalry engagements, in 18 of which he led a brigade or division. He was honorably mustered out of Army January 15, 1866. Soon after General Wells' return to civil life, he became a partner in a firm of wholesale druggists at Waterbury. In 1868, they transferred their business to Burlington, which was thereafter his residence. He represented Waterbury in the legislature of 1865-66, being chairman of the military committee and an influential legislator. In 1866, he was elected Adjutant General of Vermont and held the office until 1872. He was succeeded by James Stephen Peck and accepted appointment as Collector of Customs for the District of Vermont, a position which he filled with efficiency and credit for 13 years. At the end of that time, he resumed his active connection with the business house known the world over as the Wells-Richardson Company, manufacturer of Payne's celery compound. General Wells was married with 2 children, Frank Richardson and Bertha Richardson Wells, who later married Dr. Horatio Nelson Jackson. In 1886, Wells was a member of the Vermont State Senate from Chittenden County, Vermont. He was active in Veteran Soldiers Societies, was one of the presidents of the Reunion Society of Vermont Officers, and president of the Society of the 1st Vermont Cavalry. He was one of the trustees and first president of the Vermont Soldiers' Home, and was a member of the Gettysburg Commission of 1889-90. He was the first commander of the Vermont Commandery of the Loyal Legion, and would have been re-elected had he lived until the coming annual meeting of the Commandery. He was a member of Standard Post No. 2, GAR, that's Grand Army of the Republic, Department of Vermont, and would have been made department commander several years ago had he been willing to accept an election as such. He was a member of the Vermont Society of Sons of the American Revolution. General Wells was identified with many important business enterprises in the city, being president of the Burlington Trust Company, president of the Burlington Gas-Light Company, president of the Burlington Board of Trade, director in the Burlington Cold Storage Company, director in the Rutland Railroad Company, and director in the Champlain Transportation Company. He was a member and a vestryman of St. Paul's Church and was one of the trustees of the Young Men's Christian Association of Burlington, that's the YMCA, and one of its most liberal supporters. Few men, if any, touched the life of the community in which he lived in so many important capacities. His sudden death from angina pectoris in New York City removed, while in the prime of life, a most genial, courteous, and kind-hearted man, a gallant soldier, and one of the most respected citizens of the Green Mountain State. Burlington effectively shut down for his funeral. His remains lie at Lakeview Cemetery on North Avenue. Here is a picture of him, his statue. Here's a picture of his statue at Gettysburg. And here is a picture of the Wells-Richardson Company. The building is still standing on Lower College Street. There is a statue of a copy of the statue at Battery Park in Burlington, Vermont. I do have a video on that. That might be one of the 2 I have of him. But I do have another picture of that. And this is that picture. I apologize for the rig being in the shadows there. But this is the copy of the Gettysburg statue at Battery Park in Burlington, Vermont. The house is in the French Second Empire, and I'm willing to bet that if you said that I'd like to meet you at 158 South Willard Street, people would say, let me use my GPS. If you said it was at the southeast corner of South Willard and Main Streets, maybe. Depending where I am in Burlington, I would probably know I would have an idea of that, but how many others would? If you said it was a General Wells house, I think you'd get blank stares. If you said it was a Dr. Jackson house, I think you still get stares. But if you said this house looked like the Psycho house, the house from Psycho, I bet you people would know what this is. But anyway, This is Patricia. I'm traveling for history, and if you like my content, I would ask that you subscribe to my channel, or at least consider it, and then click on the notification bell, and you will be notified each and every time I upload a video to YouTube, which is every single day at this point. And this is, what day is this? September 25, 2021. So thanks so much for coming with me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.